He has advised that we go forward. Let me begin the morning with a few introductory remarks for me as the chair, by me. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, before I call upon the eminent panelists to enlighten us with their views on the subject, may I take the liberty of making some preliminary remarks which would serve to set the stage, as it were. We all know that over the past few decades, global value chains or global production sharing arrangements have become a prominent feature of world economy. International investments, particularly by multinationals, have played a key role in coordinating the functioning of global value chains, whether by offshoring to their affiliates or outsourcing to independent enterprises. And here is how the SMEs play a role in global value chains. Outsourcing involves the procurement of inputs and intermediate goods through arm's length transactions from them, from small, medium and other enterprises not controlled or related to the principal entities. Such outsourcing deserves special attention of all stakeholders, and particularly of governments in host countries, as they fulfill a number of functions. They broaden the base of international production networks, spread the benefits beyond the enterprises controlled and managed by international investors and multinational enterprises. Thus, outsourcing activities make global value chains more inclusive. Yesterday, we heard the speakers, the minister included, stress on the importance of inclusiveness. But that's not all. The involvement of SMEs is likely to increase the possibility of employment creation. If the coordination work by the multinational enterprises remains confined to offshoring, the additional employment opportunities could not be that ambitious. We all know that in manufacturing growth, technology has made what is known as jobless growth a reality. Further, and this is also important, SMEs have become the source, almost the fountainhead of innovation in various fields. And there are very good examples of this. And many of the leading firms in the world of today started as SMEs. The logic behind enhancing or facilitating the participation of SMEs in global value chains is thus amply clear. The objectives are to make production networks more inclusive, to create more jobs, and to stimulate innovation. In order to achieve these objectives, the challenges before the SMEs need to be addressed. In most developing countries, SMEs put access to finance at the top of their problems. In the literature, I have found only one instance in the European Union. A survey done in 2013 revealed that access to finance was the second most important problem, contrary to the experience in developing countries. They said that finding customers was a greater problem. This is the European Union. However, the responses from SMEs in developing countries to questions on their problems are similar. Whether you take large countries with a developed industrial base like China or India, or countries in Africa, which are in earlier phases of industrial development, access to finance is the major challenge. Among the reasons given in the literature, two major ones are high transaction costs involved in, for the financing institutions in advancing loans to the SMEs, and information asymmetries between the SMEs and the financial institutions. To mitigate perceived risks in lending to SMEs, the commercial institutions inevitably, the financial institutions inevitably ask for assets to provide collateral security. The major challenge for new SMEs is that they do not have the means to provide collateral security. They have innovative ideas. They have excellent plans, but no assets. I came across this gem from the writings of a Chinese author, which epitomizes this difficulty. I'll just read out a couple of sentences. Quote, he writes, and the English is also his, "The bank always loves the rich and hates the poor. If you have more assets, he would like to marry his girls to you. If you just start your business, he would not give you money by any means. SMEs should not hope to get money from banks." This is a Chinese author about experience in China. SMEs themselves are responsible for a part of the problem. They do not have the wherewithal to present their case in a professional manner. They do not have the expertise to draw up financial statements. The SME entrepreneurs have to acquire knowledge of finance and accounts to improve their chances of success in accessing finance from financial institutions. I must stop here and turn the mic over to the distinguished panelists. I have stated why we need to make all efforts to enhance the participation of SMEs in global value chains. I have underscored that at least in developing countries, the most pressing problem of the SMEs is something that is the access to finance. I have even referred to the source of the problem. Now, how to address these problems, which is the subject of today's seminar, is something that we would like the panelists to deal with, to address. They are, of course, free to speak on all aspects of the subject. Now, the profiles and the credentials of the speakers can be seen from the documents before you. This first speaker on my list is Dr. Premchandra Athukurala, Professor of Economics, Crawford School of Public Policy, the Australian National University. His writings cover a variety of subjects including trade policy, labor migration, multinational enterprises. Among other things, Premchandra has made an important contribution in quantifying trade in international production networks. Prema, you have the floor.
I'm not going to talk specifically on finance in my presentation, but the purpose here is to come up with a framework within which you can think about various issues involved in promoting SMEs within global value chain. Along the way, I wanted to rectify certain misconceptions surrounding this debate. I'm going to structure my presentation in the 4 sections. Firstly, a brief introduction to global value chain concept. Then why we should emphasize promoting SMEs within global value chain. And then what are the policy options, very briefly. At the end, I'm going to come up with findings of a little case study. In fact, this is my ongoing research relating to SME engagement in global value chain, case study based on the famous electronic hub in Penang, Malaysia. As you know, you cannot generalize from a case of a given country, but in order to gain insights into the issues involved, case studies, I think, are the best tool in this subject area. The definition of global value chain, I have broken into 2 parts to make it easy to understand. The value chain means the full range of activity involved in bringing a product from its inception, that means drawing board stage, to the final consumer. It involves product design, selecting production sites, and arranging different segments of the production as a whole, and so on. And then global value chain means value chain that is divided across national boundaries. Understanding the structure and dynamics of global value chain is very important in crafting policies to help SMEs to get involved in the value chain. In the policy debate, global value chain is used as a homogeneous phenomena. I read the background paper prepared for the last G20 conference. They use it as a blanket statement throughout. Ministers, policymakers always say that we have to plug into value chain. But what value chain? That is the real issue. It can vary from product to product, different activities to activities, but in order to set the stage for understanding the differences, the best starting point is this 2-way division. On the one hand, you have buyer-driven global value chain. Now, the definitions are built around the role of the lead firm. In any value chain, you have a lead firm around which the value chain is evolved. Now, in a buyer-driven value chain, which is in fact the most popular phenomena to most of you, the lead firm in the value chain is the international buyer, a large retailer or brand name owner. Say Walmart dominates buyer-driven value chain in the world, or Victoria's Secret, the fashion ladies wear producer, it's a brand name owner. The activities are centered around their activities. Now, these value chains are basically prominent in diffuse technology products such as garments, footwear, toys, variety of handicrafts, and so on. Now, in this case, the driving factor would be forging a link between the given SME and the buyer. And credit arrangements can be much more binding here than in the next type of value chain. Therefore, you should not prescribe one policy as blanket. For everybody, credit is a constraint. I don't believe it's not consistent with the reality. Then, producer-driven value chain are value chain evolved around an international manufacturer. Say Intel Corporation, the leading microprocessor producer, is a multinational, and that is a value chain evolved around its operation. It has operations in 7 countries, and these operations again are related to various other companies in the value chain. Now these type of value chains are common in basically in vertically integrated global industries, electrical goods, automotives, scientific instruments, medical devices, and so on. Now, these value chains are basically driven by production fragmentation. Like the computer I'm using here, even though it looks like a single product, the components are spread around many countries. And the lead firm coordinates this activity very closely. When it comes to joining global production network or the producer-driven value chain, the crucial issue is forging a link between producer and the value chain and the SME. In that context, trade and investment liberalization and other related policies are far more binding than credit. When a link is forged, actually mostly the lead firm and the related companies in the chain even take care of the credit requirements. I'm going to illustrate this using the Malaysian example later on. Therefore, keep it in mind, even though policymakers talk about joining value chain, sometimes they don't know what they are talking about. Things are different from area to area. Then, what is the rationale for policy emphasis? As Dr. Hoda pointed out, GVC's global value chains have become much more prevalent and elaborate over the past few decades as an integral aspect of economic globalization. There are various ways of measuring the magnitude of global value chain. According to my estimates, producer-driven value chains account for more than half of global manufacturing trade. Part and component traded within a value chain account for about 30% of total manufacturing trade. And the share has been increasing dramatically. In the early 80s, when we have some data to make the estimate, these figures were less than 10–15%. Now it has been growing rapidly. Now, therefore, the second point directly comes from the first point. Policy emphasis on join in global value chain is therefore a natural policy response as part of economic globalization. If you want to deviate from old import substitution emphasis and grow through global economic integration, you can't avoid global value chains, simply because they are encroaching rapidly most of the areas in international trade. The old conception of international trade, which assumed that countries trade in goods produced from beginning to end in given location, is losing its relevance. Therefore, if you want to try through global economic integration, you need to focus on global value chain. Now, then the immediate question is, why SMEs? Intuitively, bigger firms are in a better position to join global value chain. They have capital, and again, the human capital requirements would be easily met for them compared to small ones. And therefore, what is the logic behind focusing on SMEs linking global value chain? In other words, why it has become a key theme in G20 agenda. The most important argument here, as Dr. Hoda mentioned, is better employment and equity outcome of SME operations compared to large firms. This is an age-old argument for supporting SMEs, right? Now, the simple point is this. In a developing country, labor, particularly unskilled labor, is the widely owned resource by poor. They don't have much land or capital. They own labor. Therefore, if you want to reduce poverty, you have to pay for labor. To do that, you need to create jobs. And naturally, SMEs tend to be more labor intensive, simply because they face a capital constraint, but they have access to mostly unskilled labor. Therefore, production function for SME is hypothesized to be more labor intensive in terms of technology involved compared to large-scale firm. The second argument is also even a very old one, coming from Marshall's famous book, Principles of Economics. In a capitalist economy, the collection of entrepreneurs are just like a forest. Some trees die, some trees live longer than others. And then you need a seed base in order to plant